I'm Brannon Poe, and this is the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where you can enjoy engaging conversations about mergers and acquisitions and accounting practice management. Listen in on strategies to build a more fun and valuable accounting firm. All right, welcome to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. I'm really excited to have Cory Gayman on, and Cory is the owner and president of JCG Tax and Advisory, which is a dynamic and client-centered accounting firm, where he has a strong background in tax and accounting, and he's dedicated his career in helping entrepreneurs and business owners. We're going to talk a lot about small business owners today, and he helps them navigate the complexities of tax and compliance. He's a business owner himself and understands those challenges that they face. His goal is to be a relatable coach for business owners who need guidance in scaling their operations while managing their tax and accounting needs well. So welcome, Cory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, very glad to have you on. It's been a little bit of a recurring theme on this podcast to try to encourage accountants to kind of be more of a partner for their entrepreneurial business owners and not just give them a tax return and say, here's your numbers from last year, but really get involved in them on a different level and help them grow better businesses. So would love to just get our audience to know you a little bit better. So can you tell us quickly how you started, how you became a CPA,
Sure.
why you wanted your own firm, like what was your career path?
Right. Well, I would say just I've always had the entrepreneur bone. That I knew that was coming at some point. I didn't know in what fashion it did, and then once I realized accounting was kind of the language of business, if you know accounting, you can get into almost any business. Well, that got me excited there. So went down that path pretty much from the beginning, and I started at a small firm here in Springfield, Missouri. And then in 2014, 10 years ago, we just celebrated our 10 years. I went out on my own and moved back to my hometown, actually. So had a very relatable situation there where I could relate to clients. I had the knowledge and the training from the city and was able to start in my hometown and then grow outward from there. So it really it was natural to me, and owning and running the business was natural to me. So from there, we gathered clients. Our main clients are small business owners, because that's what I am good at and relate to. And then we even started acquiring some other small businesses and operating those as well. So we have firsthand knowledge all the way from startups to acquisitions, and definitely boots on the ground, not just the accountant that only sees the numbers. We see the day to day.
Yeah. You've experienced it, what it's like to just run another type of business, it sounds like.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what do you think? You've got some experience from the city, and you've been growing a firm for 10 years or so now.
Right.
What were some of your bigger challenges as you scaled your firm? I'd love to kind of touch on that. Like, you started, how many people did you start with? Was it just you, or you and an admin, or?
It was just me for almost a year. And then I did hire an admin. And after I hired the admin, I had an intern at a local community college. I could barely pay them. But that right there, it tells you that's the biggest challenge. It's finding the right people, and then being able to afford to pay them. So that the work was coming in. I was able to get more work, almost as much as I wanted. And then once we started acquiring and growing outward, the work came pretty easily. It was just, you provide a good service, you take care of people, and then the work will come. But you have to have the people ready to take care of it. So balancing those cash flow issues and the people process, at that moment, I'm no longer doing accounting work. I am now in HR. I am also in IT, trying to make sure that I've got a computer, then they've got a computer, and they're all connected. Can't quite afford a third party yet, but as we get to that point, and then the third party comes in and they take care of things. So It's just taking baby steps in the beginning, walking through those pieces, and in the end, making sure it's all client focused, making sure the work's getting done. So that was the most difficult part, I would say, just the people, finding the
Yeah.
right people.
Yeah. And you're doing some outsourcing now. When did you start doing some of that with your firm?
So as far as outsourcing, we go both ways, of course. So we try to sell that we are your outsource. We sell you your time back. We can take care of this that is on you. So if you think about a business that's not an accounting firm, accounting is not what they want to do. Maybe it's a mechanic. He wants to fix cars and trucks. He does not want to type anything into QuickBooks. So if we can work with them and collaborate with them, I usually try to voice it as a collaboration. We want to be your partner, so to speak, in this, and be your accounting office down the hall, right? Many times they still do their check payments and their deposits and all their day-to-day things, and then we take care of them either maybe a couple times a month or just once a month, or depending on what their needs are. And then as far as outsourcing from us, we've looked into outsourcing tax returns, outsourcing bookkeeping. I don't know if you've noticed since COVID, a lot of just small bookkeepers have popped up because the remote tools enhanced and increased and became better, which is a good thing for the industry. But now we have a lot of at-home bookkeepers. So while I don't want to see that as a bad thing, I want to see that as another potential labor market that, even if I don't have full control over them, they could still work with us. We could work with them because maybe they don't do taxes, and maybe we have a good relationship with them, and then they feed us tax returns and we send them bookkeeping. So we're trying to develop some of those relationships so that the change in the industry and the change in the labor market doesn't hurt us, but we can use it to propel forward.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so I guess you have a couple of good bookkeepers that you've found and gotten relationships with. And
Yeah, we've got a couple, and even some that have worked for us but needed to move. They moved away, or they needed something different, but they continue to even work with us a little bit on a contract basis. So we try to just maintain those good relationships. We do have a bookkeeping staff, a full bookkeeping staff, so we don't shy away from that work at all. But the reality of it is, many taxpayers are using them. So let's also be there and be available to be the tax department for those clients and those contractors.
so, on the topic of small business, what do you think are some of the most common mistakes you see small business owners making? And how can an accountant really help either prevent or help solve some of those
Mhm.
issues for your business
Right.
clients?
So one of the biggest I would say, and it's a little bit of a selfish perspective, but neglecting the accounting, because it's coming to head at some point, no matter what. And the deadline to file your tax return, that's coming at some point. You're going to have a banker that needs it for a loan at some point. So if you neglect it, then suddenly it's a rush and you're trying to cram everything in at once. Well, again, if we go back to our mechanic example, or our self-employed doctor, or anyone that's self-employed, they want to do their service. They don't want to do the bookkeeping, so they just kind of push it off, push it off, push it off. Then suddenly they're calling us at extension deadline in October, and they need their tax return filed in 3 days, and they have a whole year's worth of bookkeeping that they don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one of the number one things. If you can just stay in front of it on your own, or hire someone like us, or hire someone that can watch your books and reconcile them at least once a month, that gets you significantly ahead of the game there.
Just basics, just the
Just the
basics.
basics. And then that kind of leads me to the other big problem I see is, you need to determine what you have set out to be a self-employed person for. What is your goal? Is it to create a job for yourself so that you have a job, or is it to grow a business, grow it where it is and then grow it substantially? Which are you trying to do? If you want just a job, you're going to work, you're not going to work less than you did at your last job. You're going to work 40 to 80 hours a week, maybe more, depends on what you do. If you're growing to to grow, if you started it to grow and you really want to grow a business, then you have to take these steps and hire people and backfill along the way and get yourself to a presidential style role instead of a doer and a technician style role. So if it the clear definition of what you set out to do is important, I believe. And from an accounting perspective, we can show you you're making this much money, but look, you're doing all of it. So that is your paycheck only. Are you really wanting to grow? Then you're gonna have to hire someone, then you're gonna have to take a pay cut, and we can kind of walk through those baby steps, and then the ebbs and flows of cash flow follow suit there. So I would say that's one of the most important things that a new business owner should consider right up front. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with just creating a job for yourself. If that's what you want, if you run a restaurant, you've created a job for yourself. You're going to be there all the time. And if that's what you want, that's okay. But if you set out to have some freedom and be able to take vacations when you want, you're going to have to put some other things in place.
Hi, this is Liesl from Poe Group Advisors. If you're enjoying this episode and you're thinking about selling your firm, check out our recent episode with Clay Blakely, where we dive into his experience on selling his accounting practice and the do's and don'ts of how to smoothly transition. Or if you're in the market to acquire a firm and need some pointers, check out our episode with recent buyer Ravi Patel. Thanks for listening, and now back to the episode.
Do you think, or maybe you could give me I'm putting you on the spot here, but a rough estimate of how many business owners do you think have a good understanding of how cash flow works and how, they can look at their financials, be it monthly or quarterly, and really understand where their cash flow is and where it's going, where it's headed?
Mhm.
You know, I'd be curious to see what your take is on sort of the percentage of business owners that actually know those things.
So with the small business owners, we'll stay focused on them because they're typically not versed in accounting. And accounting can feel like its own language, right? You have these forms, you have the balance sheet, profit and loss, and the cash flow statement. And they're looking at these like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I'll ask them if they have any questions. I don't feel qualified to even ask a question. So we have to walk through it with them. And I'd say it's 25% or less truly understand what they're looking at. So our job is to try to help them first understand the historical reports. Then to answer your question, we take their cash flow projections and try to understand the future. And if they have enough cash flow to maintain the future. So, like I do, they foresee their loan payment as a fully expense. They don't understand when I show them have a profit, but they paid their loan payment down, why they have a profit. Or if I show $100,000 profit and they have no money in the bank, they don't understand why that makes sense. And well, you bought this piece of equipment, you paid off this loan, you did certain things that aren't on that profit and loss statement. So first we have to, honestly, it's rare that I get a business owner that wants to get that in depth. And so we try to create that desire for them because we want them to understand. And then we have to do some education on how these reports work. And then how do we project those into the future and how do we consider? So back to answer your question, I'd say it's less than a quarter really get into it. The rest of them
Yeah.
it's just to do the tax return and move on.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And then my follow-up question is like, okay, the 25% that either know it or they learn it from what you've helped them, you've
Right.
taught them. What do you see as the consequence of them knowing that information? Like what happens
Mhm.
if they come to you and don't know that information and you're able to maybe find a good student that wants to learn
Yep.
this and
Yep.
wants to really get into it and leverage the business.
Right.
What do you see? What have you got any stories or examples
Yeah,
of that?
absolutely. You'll see them get motivated to create a budget and to have a plan. So many just barrel into it, and then they get so busy that they forget their plan and they just work. So that's what I mean by, are you going to be a business owner or are you going to be an employee, effectively just a worker? But once they've created a plan, then they can make changes if necessary. And that whole, back to the first thing I said, that was neglecting the accounting process. If you do that, you really never get ahead of it. And you really need to get your mind ahead of it and be looking into the future instead of always trying to catch up. And once you're able to look into the future, you can actually make real changes that have real results. Then you can see more positive cash flow. You can see more profitable business. You can raise prices if you see that costs are rising. It's hard to do that when you're just looking 18 months in the past just to get your tax return done all of a sudden.
Yeah, you can start thinking about what if we did this to the business? What
Mm-hmm.
if we did that? And that's a
Sure.
different conversation than, hey, you owe this much in tax, or
Right. Right.
yeah,
And then it's another thing you can plan for. I know how much tax I'm going to owe. So let's put that in the budget as well, instead of just that's a big surprise at the end also. And sometimes that's a very big surprise because again, they didn't fully understand the expenses versus cash paid out.
yeah. And so to take it another step further, like from the perspective of the firm owner, when you get clients that are being proactive and being more future oriented, and you become that partner in helping them plan their business,
Mhm.
what does that do for the relationship that you have with them? And what does that do with their price sensitivity or lack thereof?
Right.
What does that do for your firm?
No, absolutely. It strengthens our relationship for sure and makes it more of a it's not really nothing's really enjoyable in accounting, but it makes it more of a positive interaction every time we talk. Because let's be honest, we are sometimes a necessary evil, but once we turn that corner and we're focused forward and they're seeing good results, wow, it actually becomes something they want to do is talk to us and talk to us about their plan and see what our take is on it. So, and then there, like you said, with price sensitivity, we can appropriately set our prices and raise our prices as our costs go up. And we know you're worth it. We've seen results. We're good with that. We understand. And then they also understand because they probably had to raise their prices as well. So once you get someone that is not just running by the seat of their pants all the time and they're forward thinking, the relationship's better, our profitability is better, and it creates less tension and frustration in general.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, tell me a little bit more about sort of the um, what you see in terms of either technology or like what's
Mhm.
exciting to you looking forward in your own practice. Um, what are you excited about looking forward?
Yeah, so we have actually undergone over the past 18 months or so a big shift on how we interact with our clients and our communication with them. And so I have two things I want to talk to you about. And this is basically the practice management. Where we're using an online portal that sends them automatic replies when we've done something. We can communicate with them right in the portal. They can do e-sign and everything. So our remote base has grown substantially, and many of our non-remote clients have just turned into remote. Even if they're in the same town, I mean, why waste hours of your day when you could just get online, send everything in, then check on it later and let us do our job, check on it later, then go sign. So it has really improved the convenience for everybody across the board. Then the other thing I'm really excited. So that's improving all the time. And so I'm very excited about how that communication and how we can improve communication with our clients. Because one of the biggest things that happen in accounting firm, one of the hardest things is we get so busy that our communication starts to drop off. Our turnaround time starts to extend just a little bit. And then that's when tensions and frustrations can grow. Then you have people calling in for a status report, which only compounds the issue because we don't really have time to take your call to give you a status report if we're not done yet. um, but if we can maintain those expectations, give them some sort of automatic update, it helps everything run smoother. The other thing we're really excited about is just what's going to happen with AI. Every software is starting to embrace it more and more. We have, tax returns. Some tax returns, let's admit it, they're just data input, and they do need to go in the right spot. So that's why we're still very important in those tax returns as well. But it is something that potentially an AI could do. And so we're seeing our software program start to embrace that. And it's still quite a bit unknown. Every year it feels like we're getting closer and closer to how it's going to be used. But it's exciting to just watch the change, and so that we can be more efficient and more cost effective.
Yeah, yeah, the tech is changing a lot, and um, I think staffing is changing a lot. It sounds like you're
Mhm,
embracing sort of new ideas all the way around. So
mhm.
that's really probably propelling you forward quite a bit.
Right. We've always tried to stay on the forefront. 10 years ago, I was already pushing the online portal and the e-sign and what happened was when I got pushback from everybody on it, of course, but then COVID came and forced everybody into it. And then honestly, for the good of the industry, pulled all the other firms up to it as well. But we were already there. Like
Yeah.
when we were told to go home, we just went home. We took our computers and went home and kept working because we had that capability already set up and we could
Nice.
continue serving our clients from their home to our home and we didn't have to get together and we didn't have to go to the office.
Yeah.
So we've always tried to stay on the forefront.
How about finding staff other than sort of outsourced bookkeepers? Like, have you
Mhm.
had any any breakthroughs on just attracting talent to your firm?
Yeah, it's
Like,
difficult. It really is. And uh, one of the remnants of COVID was that the labor market stayed so hot for another couple years. And once that seems to have finally started to cool down a little bit, but our industry, again, with the technology advances, sure, it does seem more attractive for someone to just do it on their own. So that's why we've embraced the idea of these contract relationships because that does continue to happen. Other than that, we have to just look the traditional ways. We have to get online and go to the recruiter style job posting places, and the it seems to have flipped back over to where now it is potential employees can actually get together and have a good conversation and we can decide what works. And it's not just about money and it's not just about, can I work from home? Because that was our only two questions we ever got for a long time was, can I work from home? How much am I getting paid? And we had many no shows to interviews and no callbacks, or we would choose someone after interviewing the day before, try to call them and they wouldn't answer the phone. I mean, it was pretty crazy for a while, but I do feel like that has finally cooled off.
that's good. That's good. All right, want to shift a little bit. So,
Sure.
I love to hear like funny career stories that people have had. Can you think of something with a client,
Mm,
either in your current firm or previously that's sort of like
yeah.
a bizarre account? It's amazing how interesting some of these accountant stories are.
What's funny? We see a lot of gambling around us because we're close to Oklahoma and there's a lot of casinos. And one just odd thing that I don't know if it's funny or not, but we will see someone come in and they'll have been to the casino every single day, win all this money. We add them all up and then we ask them, okay, did you lose anything? Do you have any records of your losses? Yep, we lost it all. Every time, every single time. So, I don't know if it's a funny story or not, but it's an oddity that I never thought I'd encounter.
Yeah. So it's funny they're reporting to you that they won all this money, but then they're
hmm Well, they get the W-2G from the casino,
yeah,
so they get the form and
yeah,
then they tell us we lost it all. So I'm
yeah,
like, either you really did lose it all, and that's kind of sad, or what are we saying here?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that's an interesting one.
That is interesting. Yes. Um, Books. I always like to get a book recommendation from my
Yeah.
guests. What books come to mind? Anything that if you're a practitioner that you
Mhm.
just got to read this particular book?
It's been said before many times, and it's just a classic. But most things by Napoleon Hill, including Think and Grow Rich, just most things will get an entrepreneur's ideas moving and get the feelings that you have inside of why you want to do it. Because it's hard to explain why you want to be an entrepreneur. It sounds crazy, but you will read in his books that, oh, this guy was 100 years ago. He had the same feelings. He had the same, and then he acted on it, but he even struggled with it as well. So struggling with the same things that I'm struggling with. So I really, really connected with many of those. So there's a little bit of uh, language that's a little different. The writing style is a little different. So you just got to get into it and read it. And there's some good stuff in those. But I like that Think and Grow Rich in particular, but almost anything by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, I agree. When I first started my business, I was a pretty voracious reader and bought some audio tapes and just
Yeah.
listened to that stuff, and it's very inspirational. So
Right.
those are great recommendations. All right, Cory, this has been a great conversation. How can people best follow or connect with you
Yeah,
online?
you can find me on LinkedIn for sure. You can search my name, Cory Gayman, or our firm, JCG Tax and Advisory. We're on all the other socials as well: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have some things going on YouTube, and we do have our website, JCG tax.com, jcgtax.com. We just changed to it from JCG CPA Firm. So that is that's where you can find us and learn more about us. We have 7 offices here that circle this area of Southwest Missouri. One actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and one in Girard, Kansas as well. So we're staying busy. We've got a great team. I've got great people that are with me right now, and we're all kind of, now that the October deadline is over, we're all kind of relaxing a little bit. So learn
Nice.
about us. We're getting ready to do some tax strategy and planning meetings. So if there's anyone that is interested in that, I mean, we're ready to do that before the first of the year.
Nice. All right, Cory, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Brannon.
Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. You can keep the momentum going by subscribing and sharing your thoughts with us. Visit our website at pogroupadvisors.com for more resources, and tune in next time for more exciting conversations like this one.